A competitive tax-free salary of about 12,000 Qatar riyals in some cases. Free flights to your home country, free annual flights to your home country. Lots of holidays scattered around, and in some cases scholarship for your own kids. On paper, guys, a teaching job here in Qatar seems to be one of the ideal career paths to follow. I mean, just look at any description of a good teaching job which you can find online, and there are usually very attractive benefits linked to it, like what I listed before at the entrance of the video. In some cases you will even have extra perks like a whole 2-bedroom apartment just for the teacher being hired in question. So, not to talk of the numerous holidays which usually are given to teachers here in Qatar. They have holidays during the Ramadan period, they have Eid holidays, and for other jobs in Qatar which are so demanding on your time schedule, you have to usually put about maybe 50 or even 60-hour weeks. Here in Qatar, the teachers, they have such a flexible schedule. They have 2 days of standard. The school time usually runs from 7 to 2 a.m. so 2 p.m. sorry. So the question is, why is it so hard then to get a teaching job? Like, why is everybody not inside the teaching field here in Qatar? Welcome back to the channel, guys. My name is Sona. This is Middle Eastern. So for the most part, I try to step in on camera and give some unbiased advices, little bits of advices about the situation here in Qatar. Just like the channel describes, we are here to explore the Middle East. But I'll have to say, this particular topic about teaching jobs here in Qatar is something which has eluded me, because there's a little bit of personal story to it. Before I came to Qatar, in my home country in Cameroon, I was actually a teacher, a physical education teacher for 3 years. And the person who actually linked me up here to Qatar is a relative of mine who at the time had been a teacher here in Qatar for 7 years. So it just made perfect sense. I was already a teacher back home. So in my mind, I was like, okay, it's going to be a very smooth transition for me to come from Cameroon here in Qatar, prepare up a CV, suit up, and just, in a couple of months, maybe get a physical education or any teaching job here in Qatar. I was very confident on that. But as you will tell, it didn't quite work out that way. Even when I tried to, get some answers from the relative of mine who was a teacher and had all the experiences, knew the ropes as to where or how I should go in effectively looking after a job as a teacher, looking for a job as a teacher in Qatar. We tried everything. I went to schools, I dropped CVs in persons, I scoured all the teaching jobs online. But like I said, it didn't quite work out. And right up to this moment, I'm still trying to get a teaching job. I don't quite know, I don't quite have all the answers. But along the line, I noticed some 1 or 2 roadblocks which I think that maybe some of you out there might also have noticed, the blockades when it comes to us actually trying to get a teaching job in Qatar. I admit that for everyone it's not the same. I know people who came literally after I had been here for a couple of years, and just in a month or 2 they got their teaching jobs. They are working as teachers right now. So there's no one sure answer to this. I am still looking for the answer. I'm still looking to improve, to tweak 1 or 2 things that will increase my chances, or finally let me live the dream of continuing my teaching career here in Qatar. But like I said, guys, let's go over some of the few things which I noticed while trying to get a teaching job here in Qatar. Now, I'll start with the job description. Guys, if you have come across any teaching advert or any job posting talking about teachers needed, inside the requirements, you usually see this. uh, Bachelor of Education, BEd. And when I first started applying, I didn't really think much of that because I had a bachelor's degree in science and I had the experience of being a teacher for 3 years. So I was like, well, okay, this should be good enough for me. But it was later on that I discovered that BEd, which is required by most of the employers here in Qatar, it's a Bachelor of Education, like I mentioned, it's super important because what it essentially indicates is that you, the applicant, has gone through a proper education of being taught how to teach other people. It's not just about having a bachelor's in, you could literally have a bachelor's in engineering or whatever field, but they value, according to the system, for the most part, someone with a bachelor's degree in education more than any other degree. Because, it makes sense on paper. They are bringing you in to be a teacher, so they want someone who, knows the ethics of teaching, the teaching methods, the approaches, all of that stuff, which is what you usually be schooled on as a Bachelor of Education holder, if I can put it that way. So that's one thing which it was later on which I tend to realize, and someone actually advised me that, okay, this is what these guys are looking you for, because the Bachelor of Science degree doesn't really make you, at least in their eyes, to be a qualified teacher. And I was like, well, okay, I get that point, but at least I have evidence that I have been a PE teacher back in Africa for 3 years. Doesn't that count for something? And unfortunately, guys, that would, segue into the next point, which I'll address right here. If you look closely at the job postings or even talk to some of the hiring managers in the teaching field here in Qatar, they'll talk about relevant experience. And what this automatically means is that you could literally be a school owner from a school in some part of the world, but the relevant experience has to be tailored down to the curriculums which matches the standards here in Qatar. Unfortunately for me, being a teacher, despite the experience which I had from Africa, that isn't valued that much here in Qatar for some reason. I don't know. Maybe if I was from the UK or the United States or Australia, obviously I would stand more of a chance. But according to the way the system works here, they believe that teachers from these other parts of the world, more developed part of the world, are more familiar or are more in line with the current curriculum that they apply here to the educational standards. So that's one thing, and it's so frustrating because on the surface of it, some people might just say it's discrimination. They are being discriminated. They don't value the talents of people from other parts of the world. Yes, in a way that's true, but the thing is that this country is full of expatriates, people from different parts of the world who are living and working here in so many different fields, so many different industries. They are here with their kids. Yes, we have people from Europe, we have people from America, all of them are here. So this education which they pursue for their kids, the Qatari government has to make sure that the educational standards here in Qatar mirrors what these expats are used to in their home countries of Australia, the UK, the United States, all over Europe, you understand? So that's why they are very, very skeptical about people who are from developing countries, from Africa, maybe from some parts of Asia or something, because they feel like, okay, you might have the experience, you might, know the basics of handling kids in a classroom and whatever, but maybe at the time you will not be familiar with the teaching methods which are required to, handle kids here in Qatar. And yeah, I could see their arguments for that. I mean, the educational system here, especially for non-Qataris, is very expensive. Sending your kids here to school, it's insanely expensive. And if you're paying top dollar to have your kids schooled, you are automatically putting pressure on the schools to screen for the best possible teachers to actually attend to those kids. So that is well understood. But the thing is that, just judging people from the outlook, like, okay, this person is from Africa, so automatically this person might not be the right fit for the job. I don't think it's sensible enough, because we have very, very passionate people from Africa and from other parts of the world who, for the most part, speak excellent English, like English is their native language, and they have this passion to really light up the classroom. We also have people from America, from Europe, who maybe have worked just for a few couple of months as a teacher back then before moving to Qatar, and might not even be too passionate about the job. So that's something which goes above and beyond just having a simple degree in education or something, or coming from a particular part of the world. It's something which cannot be quantified, but unfortunately that's just how the system works. And I got to be I got to find out the hard way, because I literally tried everything. I went to schools, I tried as much as possible to argue my case of me being a good teacher or a good fit for a teacher in Qatar, but unfortunately it didn't quite work out for me yet. So guys, on the surface of it, at least from my point of view, those are some of the things which I noticed that hindered me from achieving that dream of being a teacher here in Qatar. There are some other small, or I would say less pertinent but still very important factors too. For example, women, the gender too matters. Women here in Qatar generally stand a higher chance of having a teaching job than men, because the consensus is that men are usually the ones who are involved in all the tech jobs, construction jobs, which are also very abundant here in Qatar. And the schools, they have this belief that women generally born or are more nurturing to kids than men. So if you look at the demographics, you notice that there are many more women in teaching jobs here in Qatar than men. That is just a fact of it. So if you're a man, automatically puts you at a bit of a disadvantage if you're trying to get a teaching job. Also guys, there's that cultural divide too. We are in an Arabic country, and this is the Middle East, obviously. So there are some schools, not all of them, that prefer people who are from the Middle East or from Arab-speaking country, because they feel like even though the general teaching standard here is in English, but these people can more easily, explain, elaborate on some certain things, both in English and in Arabic. So that greatly affects you who is not an Arabic speaker, or you have not lived in the Middle, or you are not familiar with the culture of the Middle East. Because yes, I definitely understand this point very well. I mean, kids who are born here, who have grown up here all their life, they are used to seeing their fellow Arabic nationals. I mean, their friends, their parents' home, the home of their friends. They meet people who generally look, speak, and behave like them. So if you're from if you're a teacher from Africa or some other part of the world, you tend to stand out a bit in the classroom. The kids might need some time to connect with you in a way in which they'll naturally just connect with someone who maybe speaks their language or behaves in a similar way to how their parents behave at home, or how they interact with people in the general society here. So that's also a very big point, which I think, although it doesn't, or it shouldn't automatically disqualify someone from being a teacher here, but they tend to look at that. That's just the reality of it. So guys, that's the situation here in Qatar when it comes to teaching jobs. Like I said, it's a very, very desirable job, and if I could someday get into the teaching field here in Qatar, I'll be really proud and happy about it, given the number of years which I have tried to. But like I said, this is one of the fields which some of the things which I've talked about here, I'm literally just scratching the surface. Yes, I know many of you out there who may have the answers or even better answers as to what's actually going on. So please do let me know in the comment section. And if you are working as a teacher already, or if you're an HR, or if you're in charge of some school and you just happen to be watching this video, please let us know in the comment section. Me and all the other people who are also trying to live this passion of getting into a classroom as a teacher, let us know, what do we do, or what are we not doing right? How can we go about this issue of maybe elevating our skills? What can you suggest that can be done to increase the chances of someone potentially landing a teaching job here in Qatar? I'll be really, really grateful to hear from you, so that all of us can learn from what you have to say. So thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Sona, this is Middle Listing, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Please do like and subscribe, drop a comment below. It really helps to grow the channel and all of that stuff. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next one.